Good morning, friends. Welcome to the Dulcimer Crossing weekly live stream. I want to thank Erin May Lewis for filling in last week and talking about the decisions we make between capoing and retuning on the mountain dulcimer. Today we're going to talk about the capo as it relates to hammer dulcimers. I've heard many people say, I wish there was such a thing as a hammer dulcimer capo. And the reality is, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's go back and just review for a minute what a capo is and what it does. Now, in the United States, we call these things, they can come in different shapes, but we call this a capo. It's an Italian word, capo, which means from the head or the head. Capo means the head. And in repeat signs in music, when it says da capo, it means go to the head. You go back to the beginning of the music. On an instrument, the string vibrates on a stringed instrument, the string vibrates between the nut and the bridge. And this is called the head up here. This whole part of the instrument, doesn't matter what it is, it's called the head. And then the nut is what divides the head from the neck. So the capo or capo is effectively acting as if it is the nut, because the nut is not movable, but the capo is. Now this is a guitar. The frets are evenly spaced between each other, which means they have a diatonic placement. And because they are diatonically placed, every time I move to a new location, I just put up our title for today, everything is raising by the even distance, which would be half steps. So this, if I'm going to call this, I'm in a different tuning, but if I'm going to call this do, this would be a half step above it. So pretend this is C. This is C sharp. This is D. This is D sharp. This is E. Between E and F is no half steps. So that's F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. And then my neck won't let the capo seat on here, which is going to get us to the mountain dulcimer, but that at the 12th fret would be the repeat of the open. So every time I move the capo, I'm changing the pitches that are available by one half step. What does this do? It lets me play so here I have a song that's in G. I want to play G, C, and D chords, which are often chords that many people play and know, but I want the song to be in A flat. If I raise it up a half step, I can still play my G shapes, and all the chords are going to sound like they're in A flat. And I can continue that up the fretboard if I want to play it in G. And the easy clue that I remember is in the key of G, whatever's at the third fret are the names of the chord that I'm playing. So I'm actually playing at the A location. And if I go up again, well, then I can play in B flat. And it just lets me raise the pitches of what I'm playing, and lets me play familiar chord shapes, or the ones I've already learned, or the ones that help me make it fit my voice. So that's what a capo does on a chromatic instrument like a guitar. What Erin May was showing us was on a mountain dulcimer. You can see the frets are not equal. They're a long, short kind of frets. And a capo, well, it's something that didn't exist in the old days because there was no point. The frets were only under were only under the melody string or strings, and so you were always droning. Right now I'm tuned 158 or DAA, and when I put my capo down, it's got the same idea, the anatomy of the instrument. Here's the head, here's the nut, here's the bridge, the string vibrates that length. This acts as a movable nut. When I move it up behind the first fret, everything was at D here, now it's at E. When I go up to the second, it's at F sharp. When I go up to G, or the third fret, it's G. When I go up to the fourth fret, it's A. When I go up to the fifth fret, it's B. When I go up to the sixth fret, it's C. And let's get you out of the way. When I go up to the 6.5 fret, it's C sharp, and then I'm back to D, and everything I did from 0 or from 1 up to here is repeated again as I get above that. I can use my capo above the 7th fret. It gives me a very, very short playing length for the strings. Now, the difference between the guitar and the mountain dulcimer is that there's no fret in the middle here. So instead of raising everything by a half step, I'm raising it by a whole step. But the other thing is the pattern of frets did not change. So now when I start at 1 instead of 0, I've changed the mode as well. So on a chromatic instrument, when I move the capo, it behaves chromatically. On a diatonic instrument, when I move the capo, it behaves diatonically. That means in a typical major scale, I've got, or 6.5, I get a major scale. When I put it on the first fret, I get a minor scale, because in the diatonic world, 1 is major, 2 and 3, well, they're modal. That is the Locrian mode, but it's one of the minor ones. But when I get to the 3rd fret, that gives me a major scale. At the 4th fret, if I use my 6th fret, and when I get to the 6th fret, or the 5th fret, that's Phrygian, Phrygian Lydian. Here's Lydian. Anyway, every time I change the capo, it not only makes the string shorter, but my fret layout changes. And so the chords are going to sound differently. So if I play just like on a guitar, my 1 chord or a D chord, my 4 chord or a G chord, my 5 chord or an A chord is going to sound like that. But when I put my capo on at the 1st fret, that's a minor chord, major chord, ambiguous chord, but it could serve as the major chord at the 1st fret. When I go to the 2nd fret, and I do the same shapes, I get a different, here's a minor chord, here's a minor chord, and this is diminished kind of chord. When I go to the 3rd fret, I get the same ones as I got at 0. When I go to the 4th fret, if I use 6.5, I get major. If I use 6, I get major or minor. And what changes is not only the pitch, but the mode and which chords are going to show up. Now, I'm doing all that as backdrop for the hammer dulcimer, because there are times when in our musical world we want to play in a different key. And I've heard many, many people say, I wish there was a hammer Dulcimer Capo. But you know what? Move me up into the corner over here. The hammer Dulcimer is laid out almost as a capo. So we have these boxes. Move you over here. Thank you. So let's say I've learned a song in D. So if I start at the top of the box and play down and a little below to do that, but say G, oh, it's kind of played in a flag pattern. But say that's not the key I want to play it in. I may not be able to go up a half step to E flat, but I can go up to G. Or I can go up to C. Now I've played the same pattern all 3 times and gotten the same relationships of notes to each other, but the song is sounding at different pitches, which would be the same as a different key. Now I could go down to my A box. I had to go to my bass bridge to borrow some if I was on your instrument, but I could also do it in E. So all I have to do is move to a new location on the instrument. In fact, I could walk up in scaled tones, although they may not be sequential. Here's C. I want it in D. I go to the D box. I want it in E. I want it in F. We didn't talk about that box. I want it in G. A. Now I don't have a B box. I don't have a B flat box. So I'm going to skip right back to C. So you can see the way the hammered dulcimer is laid out is magic. It's like it's got its own capo built in. I don't need an additional piece to put on here. All I need to do is move. But in order to do that, it really is helpful to know where my boxes are on the instrument, right? If I have a 1615, my lowest box over here is a D, which means I will not have the low E box that I used. In that case, I could go C, D, I could go to F, G, I would have an A, and then the C. So on a 1615, a 1514 instrument, I would have all the scales or the keys that I just played that tune in, except for the E using the same shape. Now, my whole point in talking about the hammer dulcimer and the capo is there's all the notes are here and I can find other ways to play that tune. I want an E. that's playing it in a 16-15 instrument, playing the same tune, but using a completely different pattern. And that's not the effect of a capo. When you move the capo around, you get to play the same shape you know. But if I was on a smaller instrument that was let's see, a 13, 12, 11 or a 13, 12, that where my lowest note is a G over here, I could play the C scale, D. I don't have the E in that same location. I don't have, but I do have the F. I do have the G. I don't have an A, so I can play in the same shape because that box is missing here. But then I have the high C. And one other reminder, I could do most of that song in the low D box, but I'm going to run out of notes below, so I'd have to do some Dulcimer workarounds. But I have the C in 2 octaves. I also have the G in 2 octaves. So I think, I don't know if we could say this with certainty, but I know that the way the hammer dulcimer is laid out means it's not difficult to change keys, not to all of them, but to many of them, so that if we're trying to adjust something to match our voice or to match another arrangement of a piece, somebody else might have it in a different key. It's not that hard for us to just move to that location for many songs. Now, it's not going to be true for everything. And some songs, because of the way they behave, are not going to let us play in the box, for example. But there's a lot of transfer of things from one location to another location without too much difficulty. So I kind of lured you in with the question about the Hammer Dulcimer Capo. There's no new product called Hammer Dulcimer Capo. The Hammer Dulcimer is laid out so that we can take advantage of the same skills we would use with the capo on a fretted instrument and use them on the Hammer Dulcimer. Well, this is coming, and I'm not sure it's going right to Facebook. I'm going to have to send it there specially after we're done. I don't know exactly what happened here, but our new platform is dulcimercrossing.simplero.com. Eventually, the Simplero will go away because both the old website and the new website are working or coexisting and working side by side. Eventually, everything will go back to being Dulcimer Crossing, but right now we're in that in-between time. And if you want to check out what we have on our new platform, go to dulcimercrossing.simplero.com. And oh, yeah, I have a couple other things I want to remember. So let's take that away because this is in order of how the festivals happen and deadlines are coming up. Southern California Harvest Festival of Dulcimers is going to be online again. So let me share my screen. Here is their festival. This happens at the end of this month, the last weekend of September. It's going to feature Jody Marshall on hammer dulcimer, Aubrey Atwater on mountain dulcimer, and then several local teachers who are all local to Southern California. Erin May Lewis and I are providing technical support for this festival. And let's go to registration because there is a deadline. The registration deadline is Friday. is this Friday. So this festival is happening soonest, and the registration deadline is next. The next one that's happening is the Corn Tune Festival. And this festival registration opened on Sunday. And it takes place in the beginning of October. And registration is open, for nearly a month for this one. I don't think they have the deadline here, but it's going to come up. Yeah. Registration is open, and some classes are selling out. There is lots of room in a lot of other classes, though. I do know that two of mine one is sold out and one is nearly sold out, and others have some registration. And then finally, the North Georgia Foothills Dulcimer. Oops, we want to not there. I want to go here. North Georgia. Yep. Thank you. Registration for this festival opened last Friday. And it takes place in November, the weekend before Thanksgiving. And several of our Dulcimer Crossing instructors are going to be there. You can see there's a nice big lineup. There's all kinds of instruments being played. So these things are all open right now for online registration. And my 6-week classes will begin on the week of September 20th, and registration will open for them tomorrow. I'll put an announcement here in the Dulcimer Crossing Facebook page as well as the other socials. There are several things we're going to be looking at. One is my Dulcimer Friendly Evening Prayer Service. We're going to learn the service in October, learn Advent tunes in November, and then have a Advent play along for anybody on Zoom in December. And those will be on Wednesday nights. And the rest of the schedule will be available. And public tomorrow. I think registration doesn't start. It starts on Sunday. Registration, I said Thursday, but registration opens on Sunday, but it will be available to take a look at tomorrow. Well, that's what I have for us today, friends. I apologize for the strange start time, and I also apologize I'm not seeing us on Facebook like I normally do. And so I'm not able to answer questions if you've been typing in questions. But feel free to write to me, steve@dulcimercrossing.com, if you have follow-up questions or insights or comments. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will plan to see you at the regular time next week. Bye-bye.